to this last call here as we're wrapping up the end of the show. This is Andrew in Ohio calling in. Andrew, what's going on?
How you doing, Andrew?
Thank you so much. I want to thanks. How you doing, Neil?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm
surviving
good.
this?
Good. I saw. Yeah, I'm a Christian, so I'm just checking you guys out.
Why do you got to call in the last 10 minutes of the show, Andrew? Come on, step up your game.
Secret is, Andrew, we can go a little over.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Yeah, so let's talk about the New England's dark day in May 19th, 1780. The naturalists will say it's a weather phenomenon, but I think it's something from God. Have you ever heard of this?
I've never heard of this, and I was looking at the call screener. I'm assuming it was this like an eclipse that happened that day, or maybe you can tell me more about it.
Yeah, fill us in a little. It sounds familiar, but I think you might need.
I'm just reading from the Wikipedia. It was a combination of smoke from forest fires, a thick fog, and cloud cover. But what the amazing thing is, you had to have candles required from noon on because it was so dark outside.
Okay.
So there sounds like there was a forest fire.
Happened?
So where does God come in?
As a Christian, right? Huh?
Yes, I did. Totally did. 100%.
So what happened at the crucifixion? Darkness.
What happened at the crucifixion? Yeah, there was. According to the book of Matthew.
And who?
But not the other ones, though.
And it's confirmed outside the Bible.
Oh, it is.
Is it? That's interesting. Yeah.
That's new. Okay,
wow.
Tell us where that is.
Look up Thallus.
Come again?
Thallus. Thallus.
Thallus. Okay.
I'm not sure if I've heard of that citation before. You know, I compared to most atheists, I'd say I'm pretty up there in my game on biblical history stuff, but I don't know of any references that talk about the specific day in which all those events were going on.
Even if it was or did happen in Jesus' time, it's still a natural event, or could be explained naturally.
Yeah, just because the Bible says it was dark that day, that doesn't mean like it was God, right?
We had that way of thinking way back in those days, anyways, where everything was, oh my goodness, someone's angry up there, or somewhere. You know, even pagans had beliefs like that.
Yeah.
So how can I prove the Bible to a naturalist? I guess.
Well,
that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one. So like when you say the Bible, that's really broad. The Bible encompasses a lot of things. I'm assuming what you mean is the life and events of Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're not talking about Genesis and all that.
We're talking about
what are we talking about, Andrew?
Well, I believe in the Trinity of God. So yes, Jesus appeared in the hypostatic union in the New Testament, that he's always existed. If that's
right. Okay. So now, if we narrow it down, you're saying a lot of claims there. Neil's shaking his head, but I just want to try to narrow it down a little bit. If we're just talking about the events specifically of the New Testament, right, in the life and times of Jesus, I think, having secular and other accounts of the events would be a really great start. Because for pretty much all of the events of Jesus's life, we don't have a lot to go on. There's some things like Pontius Pilate was probably a real person, like that's a thing. And there may or may not be evidence of some of the disciples, specifically Peter, right, existing as a real person. And Paul certainly was a real person. Of course, he wasn't a disciple of Christ, wasn't there when Jesus was there. So that also makes things, that's kind of conflated a lot of times. People use Paul as like an eyewitness, but Paul did not witness anything in the life of Jesus. He had visions and he talked about stuff, but he wasn't witness that. So you're working at a disadvantage, I think, Andrew. And so to confirm some of those events, they're very particular and would have happened almost globally, if not at least localized to a degree, where a historian would talk about it. For example, you did talk about the day of darkness. You know what Matthew also talks about is people rose from the dead. Now, some people take that as metaphorical, but if you follow the text, it's talking about earthquakes and it's talking about people rising from their graves and would walk around Jerusalem. Now, I don't know what the metaphor would be there. Yeah, like it's
the section that Romero wrote.
Yeah, it's like, to me, that's played pretty straight. I can see how you could twist that, but like that's a really great example. If you can show a historian that also talked about, people rose from the dead this day, in Jerusalem, that'd be great. But so far, I have yet to see anybody talk about that.
There would have to be divine intervention for that to happen, because once you have cell death occurring, you're not rising up from the
explanation, right? Like that's yeah. Go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry, Andrew.
Do you believe the temptation happened?
I can't confirm or deny any of the events in the life of Jesus Christ. I know that any miracles described probably have natural explanations if those events even happened.
Right?
Yeah.
Because he was in the desert for 40 days without food. Do you think that's possible?
No.
No,
I don't.
Look this guy up, Dennis Gaylor Goodwin. He lasted 385 days on a hunger strike. And he was in prison.
Hunger strike is different from not having food and water, though, which is what is specifically described in the story. I guarantee the man you just cited at least had water.
Yep.
But yeah, I never said that. I said he went with 385 days without food. This guy.
Yeah.
Well, and actually,
I'd have to investigate that for sure.
I have to think, Neil, I may be wrong, actually. Was there water in the story when Jesus was in the desert for 40 days?
Apparently it walked on some at one time. Canadians do that all the time. But it's frozen.
It's frozen. Yeah, there's definitely not any food. So like, okay, yeah, sure. There are people that can survive for long periods of time with minimal amounts of food. Jesus specifically didn't eat anything for 40 days, though. I don't know if this guy you're talking about did not eat a single thing. That would be something else, right? If he's eating small quantities or is getting his nutrients in other ways, right? That's not the same thing as Jesus literally sitting out in the desert and not eating anything.
He had prana.
Yeah. And on top of that, Andrew, he talked to the devil. So that's another thing too. But anyway, go ahead.
Do you believe Goliath could be 9 feet tall?
Sure. I mean, there have been people in recent history over 8 feet, so it's not an impossibility.
Sure. Yeah.
But they're not giants in the fairy tales we're used to.
I think the cubits in the span is 9 feet. That Goliath was 9 feet. And when Robert Wadlow died, he was 8 foot 11 inches, and he was like in his 20s. So
all these things you're telling me, Andrew, are fascinating, but I'm struggling to see the point. You're just kind of saying there's some plausibility with some of these stories in particular contexts, but that doesn't demonstrate that the specific claims made in the Bible are true within themselves.
That's right.
Well, that's not what I'm going to do tonight. I don't have enough time.
Yes, unfortunately you don't.
Yeah, you're right, Andrew. That's a big conversation.
And you know what? Thank you for acknowledging that, because there's a lot of people that call in and do not acknowledge that. But yes, unfortunately, we only got a couple minutes here before we got to wrap things up. So if you want to give your piece on something and maybe call in next week to talk to me more, that'd be great. But we do have to wrap things up, unfortunately.
Do it, Andrew. It's a great conversation to have, I think.
All right.
I won't be here, but there'll be something.
What do you want me to say?
Well, if you had something else you want to say right now that you could talk in the next 2 minutes.
The famous March of Progress, that road to Homo sapiens, that image they always show, that's been confirmed as a hoax. So I just wanted to
that's not. I guess that's not. I'll give you that, Andrew, and I'll go ahead and let you go here. But yeah, the famous image of the chimps walking into man, that's not scientifically accurate, and no anthropologist worth their salt would teach a classroom and use that as an example of how human evolution worked. Again,
I don't think it's meant to be that anyways. It's just to say we originally came from with the apes from some common ancestry.
Yeah, and like again, just because that particular image isn't specifically
Doesn't
true
actually say
doesn't mean that human evolution wasn't a thing.
right.
And we could definitely talk about that more some other day, but we're out of time tonight. So